Hi, I'm Stephen with AlbertaUrbanGarden.ca. With an uncharacteristically warm winter behind us and a warming trend on the way, despite this recent snowfall, here in Zone 3, it may be time to plant your cold hardy crops in your garden. On the last segment of the Urban Gardening series, I started the process of planting my summer-loving crops like tomatoes and peppers indoors. Today I'm going to talk about how I plan to grow my cold hardy crops under cover and some of the experiments that I'm going to do that should help me extend my season and increase my harvests. As many of you saw in my first vlog, I set up my hoop house and my cold frame in anticipation of this warming trend that we're about to enter into. I also ate a lunch of leafy greens that I had grown inside, and that was kind of my trial run for all the varieties that I'm going to plant today. And boy, was I impressed. That salad was so fantastic that adding something like a salad dressing would just hide the fantastic flavors the leafy greens already have. I'm pretty excited to grow these out in the garden. I have experimented with unheated season extension in the past, but this year I have put a little more time and effort into it and hope to learn how to apply these techniques to Zone 3 here in Canada. The first and most important thing to think of is how much direct sun you are getting. My house shades the entire garden while the sun is at its lowest point in the sky between late October and mid-February. Once the sun comes back, I get between 4 to 6 hours of direct sunlight, increasing as the season goes on, peaking out at just over 15 hours of direct sunlight on the summer solstice. I have tracked the temperatures over the course of the last week, and the intent of doing this is I wanted to see just how much protection the two layers were offering. Currently, the lowest temperature outside of the cold frame was -5 Celsius or 23 Fahrenheit, while outside hit -15 Celsius or 5 Fahrenheit. This indicates to me that under 2 layers of protection, I should be able to plant my most cold hardy crops. After all, I was measuring the air temperature, and what I would expect is that the air temperature will fluctuate more than the soil temperature. And what this ultimately means is the soil temperature should stay above freezing from now on underneath these 2 layers. This milestone is the one that I was looking for to allow me to plant outside. After all, Elliot Coleman, in his book 4 Seasons Harvest, is able to plant and recommends planting crops like spinach between January and March 1st. Although we're 3 weeks after that last planting date, he is in Zone 5, so I'm confident here in Zone 3. We should be able to plant those cold hardy crops now. I'm going to start with cold hardy leafy greens such as spinach, mosh, claytonia, sorrel, and mizuna. All of these varieties are said to grow best in the spring and fall when the soil is cool. I can expect that with really early planting that the germination rate might not be the best, so I plan to plant 1/16 of the area inside the cold frame per crop, and then come back 3 to 4 weeks later to plant another, and again 3 to 4 weeks after that. This should allow me to learn how to apply these methods to my Zone 3 garden. And the risk being a couple of seeds, but if I'm successful, I'll be harvesting weeks before when I normally do, and with 3 successive crops, I should be able to harvest these cold hardy crops until my more warm loving crops are ready in the summer. Spring in Alberta is somewhat unpredictable. If the seeds that I'm planting today germinate and then the temperatures cool off, I can protect them by adding another layer of protection, say a blanket on top of the cold frame, to help them get through the cold nights. If the temperatures drop below -5 Celsius or 23 Fahrenheit, I'll probably add the blanket just to make sure. Planting leafy greens is fairly simple. I simply take a pinch of each of the varieties and spread them over their square area. I then take a little bit of potting soil and spread a thin layer over and water them in. As they emerge, I will thin them out, eating the smaller ones with my salads, while allowing others to grow to full maturity. I will also be planting a duplicate grid outside of the cold frame, but inside of the hoop house. I am interested to see if, shortly after the first day of spring, I can plant these cold hardy crops under 1 layer of protection and get them to germinate. These leafy greens are not the only cold hardy crops out there. I will be conducting 2 other experiments with cold hardy crops under cover. Onions and carrots are well known to withstand some pretty low temperatures. In a few weeks, when the nighttime temperatures inside the protection no longer fall below the freezing mark, I'll plant some carrots and peas within some protection. If this method works out, I still can expect a little bit lower germination rate, but it again will help me stagger out my season. The third and final experiment I'm going to try involves cold hardy crops like kale and collards. I'm going to direct sow some kale and collards under 2 layers of protection. At the same time, I'm going to start some in my grow room to see how these two methods of starting the seeds vary throughout the season. Once the seedlings are up, I'm going to have to be careful that the plants don't get too cold or too hot. I will keep the cold frame and hoop house closed even on sunny days until I see the first seedling emerge. Once they emerge, I will vent both the cold frame and the hoop house during the day to prevent them from cooking in the sun, and then close them up again at night. After the seeds have germinated, I will lean more towards a cooler temperature than a warmer one. The weather here in Alberta can change very quickly, and as such, a cloudy day in the morning that may be cold could be sunny and beautiful like this in the afternoon. I would hate to forget to vent these or not vent them on purpose and have all of our hard work cooked by the time I get home in the evening. Once the seedlings are up, I will have to water. However, it'll probably be far less frequently than the same garden in the summer. And this is to do with the overall lower temperatures during the day. It is somewhat balanced in the hoop house and cold frame due to the intensity increase that the layers of protection cause. However, you'll still want to be very selective on when you water. You want to make sure that it's a sunny day and you only water in the morning. That'll allow any water that settles on the plants to evaporate throughout the day before the cold nighttime temperatures. If there's water on top of the plants when the temperatures drop at night, it'll increase the chance that water will freeze, harming your plant. I'm really excited about learning how to extend my season using cold hardy crops and 2 layers of protection. Not only does this help other gardeners in Zone 3, but as the vast majority of you guys live further south than me, imagine what you guys can do. This project will also help me achieve a couple of my goals of gardening over a longer season and increasing the amount of harvests that I'm able to achieve. If I am lucky, I may be able to set up a self-sowing annual cold hardy bed. If I let some of these crops go to seed, I may be able to let the bed do its own thing and not need to spend more money on seeds while continuing to harvest for years to come.